Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's meeting of Full Council. Welcome also to those members of the press and public who are joining us via the live stream. Before we begin, please can I take this opportunity to remind member and officer colleagues to turn mobiles and computers to silent and to ensure that when using the microphones, the red light is on and then turned off when you have finished speaking. Moving now to agenda item 1. Can I ask member services to report any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you. We've had apologies from Councillors Connor, Miss French, Harris, Marks, Meekins and Mockett. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 2. The minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of May 2026 are shown on pages 3 to 12 of the agenda pack. I would like to move approval of the minutes for this meeting. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bowden, thank you. Members, if you have any comments, then please raise your hand. Councillor Booth.
Yes, Chair. It's just the point regarding the Section 113 agreement. I did say that I wanted it noted that I disagreed that it was going into confidential, which isn't reflected in the minutes.
It's noted, thank you. Agenda item 3. Sorry. With that amendment, then, the minutes are approved. Thank you. Agenda item 3. For information, you will find at pages 13 to 14 of the agenda pack a list of the civic engagements the Vice Chairman and I have attended in the weeks preceding Full Council. Agenda item 4. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who attended my civic reception on the 3rd of July. It was a successful and enjoyable evening, and I would also like to thank Joe and member services for their support in organising it. As you know, my chosen charity is Damsons, a local community group for people living with dementia and their informal carers. We held a raffle for Damsons on the night and raised £337. So thank you also to everyone who took part. My next event will be a coffee morning in this chamber on Thursday the 17th of September, which will again be in aid of Damsons. So I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible at that event, and thank you for your support. There are no announcements from the Chief Executive today. Agenda item 5 is to receive any declarations of interest under the Local Code of Conduct or any interest under the Code of Conduct on planning matters in respect of any items to be discussed at this meeting. If you have anything to declare, can you please raise your hand? No hands are raised. Thank you. Agenda item 6. There have been no written questions submitted in accordance with Rule 8.6, and we will therefore proceed straight to questions under Rule 8.4. Councillor Clark, you may now ask questions of the leader within the allotted time of 20 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. As the new leader of the opposition group, I asked officers for a briefing report on several items to get up to speed, one of which was the Wisbech port. The report stated that Cabinet considered a series of confidential items in regards to Wisbech port and the Council's commercial and property interests in 2025. Wisbech port has an open port status, therefore the Council has a statutory duty to ensure that ships can bring cargo to Wisbech on request, which the Marine Services team ensures this can be done through our pilotage service and ensuring safety of navigation. We continue to receive inquiries about the use of the Wisbech port, which we deal with on a case-by-case basis. On the surface of the report, you would conclude there's nothing to be concerned about, and the briefing was received on the 8th of June. So I was alarmed to read in Cam's news story on the Wisbech port on the 13th of June. Highlights of the story was Wisbech port faces serious period of uncertainty. FDC confirmed it had served notice on the port of Wisbech after more than 20 years. Documents reveal £1 million annual losses and closure discussions. One councillor summed up the scale of concern, stating, "We cannot bankrupt ourselves." Trade pressures and shifting commercial activity and the loss of key operators and concern that other businesses could follow, shifting trade to Kings Lynn. Criticism of the quality and the completeness of the information being received. Behind the scenes, FDC is facing a more difficult question than the day-to-day operations, whether Wisbech Port in its current form is financially sustainable at all. Councillors debated on whether the authority risks bankrupting ourselves if we continue to support it. So my questions to the leader is, do you think I should have had a better briefing from officers? And as the portfolio holder, what are your initial thoughts on the way forward? And do you think we should be more open and transparent on this matter, please? Thank you.
Councillor Booth.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman, and may I thank Councillor Clark for having given me notice of this question at 6 minutes past 6 this morning in a phone call. To answer the question directly, I believe that officers will have given appropriate information, but not all the information which is available for reasons which I'll explain in a second. But there does need to be put on record certain facts. The first is that the port is not closing. There are no plans for the port to be closed, and there are no plans for the open port status of the port to be changed. None whatsoever. I have to say that the problems, and there are problems which there have been in the port, are ones which were very much in existence when Councillor Clark was himself the leader of this council. So I think he knows some of the issues which were involved then, and which have only fairly recently been brought to a head, maybe been brought to a head later than they should have been, but every attempt was made to continue operations in the way in which they had been operating in the past, and unfortunately the council was placed in a position where they needed to take action. Now, one of the reasons that officers will have been unable to give a complete and full disclosure of what is going on within the port is that there are currently significant commercial negotiations taking place for contractual opportunities, which are commercially sensitive at the moment, and they would be compromised if they became public knowledge. But on that, and they're connected to national significant infrastructure projects which we're aware of in the area. I have to say that the comment made by Councillor Clark concerning the Cambs News I found a little bit surprising, because I think that Councillor Clark is as aware as I am that not everything that necessarily appears in the Cambs News is either accurate or is not misleading. And I don't normally read the Cambs News, I have to say, but I was sent a copy of the very article that Councillor Clark mentioned. And I was more than a bit put out to read that, quote, that some people are saying that the decision concerning the Terra Marique, which is a heavy lift barge, which was meant to, or an attempt was made to bring it into the port of Wisbech with a very large, very heavy synchronous condenser for Walpole. That was turned down because of safety considerations. The ship was just too big safely to navigate into the Nene. But to read in that report in the Cambs News that some people are saying that the decision symbolised a wider reluctance to embrace opportunities capable of supporting the port's long-term future, I found really misleading, to be quite honest, because it gave the impression that we are not interested in having more work come through the port. And we most definitely are, and that is the reason that the commercially sensitive negotiations are going on at the moment, which I hope are going to be successful. Additionally, in terms of operators or an operator in the port, negotiations continue on that as well. And again, it's commercially confidential, so that is the reason Councillor Clark will not have been given that information at this time, because those negotiations need to continue to be confidential in the interests both of the port itself and of the council, and for that matter, of any other parties which are involved. So I understand the comment that Councillor Clark is making about transparency, but there are times when matters are commercially confidential, when it's not to the advantage of this council, of the port, or of the other potential parties involved for matters to be disclosed until they have been agreed. But I think, again, I need to emphasise, despite any implications that there may be from some of the comments which have been made publicly by certain individuals, there are no plans to close the port, and the open port status of the port is not changing. Thank you very much indeed, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Burton.
Thank you.
Councillor Burton.
Thank you. I'm not quite certain what list you're asking me to respond to.
Beg your pardon. I've just read out what my concerns were in the comments, and you're saying that some of them are probably misleading. I just would like to know which are the truth and which are lies.
My apologies. I wasn't making any comment about your comments, Councillor Clark, through you, Chair. I was making comments about what had appeared in the Cambs News, which was most definitely misleading in terms of suggestion that we were deliberately turning down work in order for the port not to have a successful commercial future. That was the comment I was specifically relating to here. I wasn't for 1 second suggesting anything you were saying was deliberately false. I'm not saying you weren't mistaken on some things, but that's a different matter.
Thank you. My next question is keeping on the theme of £1 million taxpayer losses. It's to visit the March Broad Street reorganisation. Despite planning and conservation officers' voice not to demolish Barclays Bank and the comments in the local newspaper from former strategic manager, lack of plan for the site would leave a gaping hole and a missing tooth. I also have an email from a former strategic planning manager on how he would have approached the project. Simply survey, analyse and plan. Firstly, FDC should have carried out a survey before purchase. This would have identified any structural issues, e.g. asbestos and brickwork tying the building to the Ringham's building. I understand that no survey was carried out. Secondly, analyse any of the above issues which would identify the costs associated with dealing with them. A feasibility study could then assess the cost benefits of retaining the building for alternative use or demolition or redevelopment. Again, I understand no feasibility study was carried out. Thirdly, the building could have been marketed as it is for an alternative use. Also, as an existing building, it could have been redeveloped, including the rear car park, to cross-subsidise the cost of any remedial work. A similar Barclays Bank site in St Ives is a good example. Again, this option wasn't investigating. I don't criticise Councillor French and her team for the decision making. Had she have had the above reports, if that is correct, different decisions may have been taken. So in summary, listening to your last lengthy officer prepared statement that the project is not about making money, and I repeat, this project isn't about making money, many people have suggested the site could be cleared and become part of the Broad Street open realm. I don't want to see the block become a block of boring flats with token shops at the bottom only to be converted into living space at a later date. March already has 2 new blocks of flats in High Street, one on the Oliver Cromwell overspill parking area and the other on the Reyos's Morris's mini market sites, with the old freezer shop site and the old George public house site likely to become flats. So my questions are, could you consider that these requests and restore some credibility to the overall project? As the site is not driven by profit, could you consider adding it to the realm of Broad Street? How much are the demolition costs to date, and what are the monthly charges on the ongoing management of the site? And could it be considered for car parking, given that we are likely at some point to lose the parking in the Dartford Road car park? It could become a parking area. How much would we spend, and how much have we spent on rent maintenance on this Dartford Road site? Because this site would be rent free. Thank you.
Councillor Burton.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, quite an interesting statement. My understanding, and don't forget I'm not the portfolio holder for this, but I'm more than happy to speak on behalf of the council as a whole. My understanding is that a survey most definitely did take place before the site was purchased, and that was a condition which I believe was actually set by MHCLG, whose funding was involved in this. However, my understanding is, and I'm beginning to reach the limit of my understanding now, that the type of problem which later was found on the site was not one which a survey would have managed to reveal before the demolition started. And I've now reached the limit of my understanding, and if I were to go further, I'd just be speculating, and probably speculating incorrectly. It's a really important site, this one. It's really strategic where it is, right next to the bridge on Broad Street. It's a very important site, and it's really important that it is utilised in an efficient and effective way to enhance the town. But the questions which have been raised in terms of potential alternative use are now actually being raised far too late, because we've gone through a process of having a competitive tender. We had various companies and individuals expressing an interest in that, and we have chosen one of those in order to move forwards. Now, it is still subject to certain conditions, so it's still not final, but having said that, we are in a position where we are not able now to go back and say, sorry, we decide we'd rather have a car park rather than have a quality development there. And Councillor Clark is entirely right, Chairman, that quality is important. That site is such a strategic one, it's such a visible one, that just putting up a block of flats, a bog standard block of flats, I think was the phrase, doing that would be entirely inappropriate at that particular location. But I have to say, a fan though I am of some of 60s architecture, I think that particular site, the Barclays Bank which was there, was entirely out of place. It was entirely out of keeping with the conservation area, and being rid of it in terms of the street scene is actually a good thing. That's my personal opinion. But it was also the opinion of those whom we brought in to try and give advice about what alternative uses there should be for that site. And I can tell all members of the council, Madam Chairman, that the alternative of just leaving it as part of the open space, the alternative of leaving it as car parking, both of those were considered. But it was decided that there would be better long-term advantage to the high street if that site were developed in a quality way and provided opportunities of various sorts which would enhance that particular part of the conservation area of March. I have previously said to members in previous meetings that if you want detailed information about something, you do need to give me advance notice. And I don't have available details about various costings of what has been going on the site over the last few months. I'm not the portfolio holder for that, and even the portfolio holder probably doesn't have that information immediately to hand. So I would remind all members, if you do want that sort of detailed information, which is not secret, but if you do want that sort of detailed information, then please do give me some advance notice so to allow me to actually gather the information, because I'm not going to guess, and I'm not going to go back, I'm not going to say something which I'm not 100% certain is going to be correct on something like that. But the comment, Madam Chairman, that Councillor Clark made about this not being about making money is entirely correct. That wasn't the intention at all. In fact, it came as an absolute matter of astonishment to me, and I still don't really understand it, that we've ended up in this position making a significant six-figure profit for FDC. That was never the intention. It was never about us making money for ourselves. I still don't know how it is that we've ended up in this scheme doing it, but MHCLG seem happy enough with the result. And I can't reveal the exact figure yet because of that, the fact that that sale is still conditional. But no, it most definitely is not about making money. It's about enhancing the Broad Street, enhancing the streetscape, and enhancing a particularly sensitive and particularly visible site, which I hope will be of benefit to the people of March for generations to come. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Burden. Councillor Clark, you only have time for one more quite short question.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for that response. We'll look forward to a quality building, and I'm quite happy to have the costings if you could inform us in writing in the next, so it'd be fine. Sitting on the Employment Committee, we were briefed how the food waste collection was being set up. Extra workshop staff, management, drivers, crews, new vehicles, etc. We have 3 operations in Fenland. We have a fleet of vehicles and drivers emptying street litter bins. We will have a new fleet of vehicles, drivers and crew and support staff collecting food waste, which we know, based on other authorities, could be a low take-up. Then we have collection of general waste, recycling, garden, HGV lorries, drivers and crews. So 3 things to do. My wife and I were standing waiting for a bus in Norfolk. Along the road came a refuse lorry, one collecting food waste in a wheelie bin, also placing the bins on the side of the road to be emptied. The main crew were emptying the bins, and as they went by, emptying the street litter bins. The answer given to why we cannot copy this system with our HGVs: do not have a small hopper to carry the food waste. However, at the last Cabinet meeting, approval was given for the purchase of 4 new refuse vehicles at the cost of £855,000. Surely we now have the opportunity to phase in a more efficient, cheaper system to operate: less vehicles, less staff, less management, less workshop and less fuel, etc. As the portfolio holder for finance, why are you not considering this option, please? Thank you.
Councillor Burden.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. I feel quite guilty that I'm taking the opportunity away from the portfolio holder to answer this, because I'm sure that he would do so far more robustly and far more succinctly than I'm going to be able to do, because my answer might be slightly longer. But the opportunity to phase it in. Yes, in an ideal world, that's exactly what we would do. And the reason we don't live in an ideal world, there are many reasons we don't live in an ideal world, but in this case, the reason we don't live in an ideal world is local government reorganisation. We cease to exist in 21 months' time. We don't have the luxury of long-term planning anymore for many things that we're doing, and this is one of them. Because what's happened here is, and what Councillor Clark saw, Madam Chairman, in Norfolk, was an example of what's known in the trade. Again, Councillor Tierney will be more authoritative than I am on this. It's called co-collection. And co-collection can work extremely well in certain places, not so well in others, but in certain places it works extremely well, but it involves a great deal of long-term planning, because you have to ensure that the contracts you've got with third parties or the assets that you've got yourself, that those are come to their end of their life or are replaced pretty much simultaneously in order to get the new co-collection vehicles in place. You can phase it in over a number of years, that's true, but that's an opportunity we don't have because of LGR. And what's worse than that is that, of course, in 21 months' time, we'll find ourselves as part of a new unitary authority, which will consist of 3, or parts of 3, maybe parts of 4 current individual local authorities, which each of which have got their own refuse collection schemes, and the ability to change that inheritance into something which is efficient and effective will be very limited for a long period of time in the new unitary authority. So for us to set something up, it would just add to the complication of what's going to happen when the new unitary authority comes into being. And I have to say that we are doing what government says we must do in the timescale that government says we've got to do it. They've provided us with a significant amount of capital and some revenue support, and we're hoping that that will meet the overwhelming majority of the costs that we have. Can't predict exactly how much, because the success of the scheme directly will affect the amount of residual waste which will be being collected by us, and any significant reduction in the amount of residual waste which is collected by us will have significant savings for us. We can't quantify that yet because we just don't know what the take-up is going to be. Until we know that, then we're just speculating about what savings we'll be able to have on that side of things. But overall, yeah, if we did have the opportunity to do this ourselves, we would do exactly what Councillor Clark says, and we would we'd take the opportunity to phase this in over a number of years as our existing vehicles reach the end of their normal useful life. We're not in that ideal world. Government told us we've got to do it. Government told us we've got to do it quickly. Government provided the money for us, especially the capital money for us, and he who pays the piper very often calls the tune. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 7. In accordance with Procedure Rule 8.1, members will find the portfolio holders briefing report at pages 15 to 40 of the agenda pack. Procedure Rule 8.2 permits questions to Cabinet members about any matter which falls within their portfolio responsibilities, and members are reminded that there is a total time allocation of 1 hour for this item. Councillor Gerstner, please.
Thank you. Question for Councillor Bowden, please. Thank you for bringing up at the Cabinet meeting earlier on today the Skullgate Centre. Thank you for bringing it to the officers to look at. For councillors here in this room may not be aware that Whittlesea is the only town that doesn't have a dedicated community centre or community hub. We do have a library which is called a hub, but that has limited hours and is again run by Cambridgeshire County Council. Cambridgeshire County Council made it somewhat challenging to community groups for a number of years to use the Skullgate Club. In fact, they put up quite significant barriers. Councillor Bowden is very well aware and much more up to speed than I am in what County Council is doing. So again, I thank you for bringing this to the attention of officers. My question to you is timescale, and has Cambridgeshire County Council actually offered the building to Fenland District Council? Thank you.
Councillor Bowden.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Gerstner, for that question. I thought you were being extremely polite about Cambridgeshire County Council in the way in which you phrased that question, because the truth is, and many members who aren't in Whittlesea will not be aware of this, the actions of Cambridgeshire County Council, so far as the Skullgate Centre is concerned, have been atrocious. Right on the cusp of the day, and it should be literally in the next few days, it will be this week, when we will find out what the boundaries will be for the new unitary authorities and what facilities, including buildings, are going to be needed by each of the new unitary authorities for the services which have to be provided. Right on the cusp of that, the vital building in Whittlesea, very well described by Councillor Gerstner, the Skullgate Centre, has been put up for sale by Cambridgeshire County Council, or rather they've indicated it will be for sale. Now, the responsibility for the activities which go on there are overwhelmingly County Council responsibilities. They're nothing to do with Fenland District Council. And it should not be for Fenland District Council to have to pick up the pieces from a bad decision which has been made by Cambridgeshire County Council. And I could say why I think they made that decision, but that would be maybe moving away from the point too far and maybe become rather party political. But it is a bad decision which was made to dispose of what is the only community facility which is available for many of the children's services in particular. The idea that children will be able to go to the library and be shown how to cook or how they play football or whatever inside the library. I have heard it suggested by a senior councillor they could always move the shelves in the library in order to play football. Just nonsense, absolute and utter nonsense. We shouldn't be, as a community, placed in this position, but we have been. Now, what happened was that one of the user groups within the Scoldgate Centre made an application to this council that the building be treated as an asset of community value. And that was fine. We accepted the application, and there are two stages to that process. The first, over a relatively short period of time, is to put in a formal expression of interest, and then there's a 6-month period for that to convert into the ability to purchase. A different user of the centre actually triggered the second part of that process. So now a 6-month period exists, giving the opportunity for them or for any other community organisation to seek to purchase or somehow finance the utilisation of the Scoldgate Centre for the purposes which it is meant for. And those purposes are primarily, but not exclusively, primarily to provide children's services, in some cases to children who have very great needs indeed. And this is very often hidden from the rest of the community. Some of the work done in that centre has been really important, and it has diverted children away from a certain direction of travel into one which is far more positive both for them and for the community as a whole. It's quite scandalous that we've been put in this position by Cambridgeshire County Council. And the reason that I have asked officers to look at how we may help is that when you're talking about an asset of community value, the one organisation, or one of the very few organisations which can't take action, is actually a council such as Fenland District Council. A principal authority isn't able to utilise the asset of community value route in order to acquire a building. What is the case at County Council, however, is there is a policy that when assets are available, then there's a right of first refusal given to the local district council. And that would have applied here to Scoldgate were it not for the fact that the AVC route has been triggered. Now, all of this is quite unsatisfactory in terms of continuing service, and the organisations which operated out of Scoldgate are working out of temporary premises at the moment. They're doing the very best they can, but they need to get back into the Scoldgate Centre as soon as they reasonably can. So I'm looking to officers to coordinate with the various users that there are, and for that matter with County Council, to see how it is that we can facilitate and assist in ensuring that the utilisation of that building goes back to what it should be. What's really even more shocking about this, and this should have been a major part of the decision-making process in Cambridge County Council, and it's been completely disregarded, is the fact that back in 2008, more than £300,000 of Sure Start money was given by government to Cambridge County Council in order to provide primarily children's services in Whittlesea, and that money has been passported over the years into the Scoldgate Centre. But it was given with a 25-year clawback. So if the County Council were to sell off the Scoldgate Centre for development, for yet more houses or flats, then they would be obliged, given that there's still 7 years left of that 25 years, they'd be obliged to give over £100,000 back to government for the Short Start money under the clawback regime. So it didn't even make great economic sense for the County Council to do what they're doing. Now, I want to see that centre utilised for the purpose it's meant for. We need to see those services provided. Some of the most troubled children in Finland have been going to the Scoldgate Centre on a regular basis in order to benefit from the services which are provided there. And there are a whole host of other facilities, including mothers and babies, and a whole host of others over the years which have utilised that centre. And I'm sorry to say Councillor Gerstner is correct, Madam Chairman, in saying that it's not been made easy for community organisations to utilise the Scoldgate Centre in recent years. So that's the situation we're in at the moment. I'm hoping that we will collectively be able to find a conclusion which is satisfactory, but which satisfies the community needs that there are and the social needs that there are, which the Scoldgate Centre has provided in the past. I'm not in a position to give any definitive answers to anything, but we have to keep a community centre, which especially for children's services, we have to keep such a facility open in Whittlesea. There just isn't an alternative, and the idea that the library can be used for that purpose is one for the birds. So apologies, I can't give anything more definitive than that, but my heart is very much in finding a solution. Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've two questions today, and unfortunately they're both for our leader. Now, I do hear some comments at times that the motions what I put through are too big for us to deal with, and food security doesn't just come locally. You know, we deal with national and a lot of international issues to try and get to the bottom of problems. And by doing that, we ruffle a lot of feathers. You know, at the moment, I'm ruffling more feathers than Bird of Matthews at Christmas. But I get a lot of death threats. I had 7 threats in 1 week, 2 which was categorised as imminent significance. That's without all the hurty-worty words apparently on social media that's supposed to bother me, and it doesn't. And we have a security system here within Fenland to protect councillors. I looked into that because the monitoring officer gave some serious assistance and that with that. And I actually chose to ignore that because where I'm located, it wouldn't have worked for me. I've now got personal security at evenings outside our house. That is how desperate and dangerous some of these issues come. Now, with what happened to Anne Widdicombe at the week, would the leader actually be interested in completely reviewing our councillors' security system to try and prevent anything else in the future like this happening? Thank you.
Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Chairman. And I think I probably speak for the whole of this chamber when I say that it is absolutely appalling that any of our members, when advocating for their local communities, end up receiving death threats, especially credible death threats. It is an absolutely unacceptable position, and everything which can be done should be done. And I certainly don't want to go into any of the details surrounding the position that Councillor Taylor has personally. That would be very counterproductive indeed. I am very pleased that the monitoring officer has engaged with this, but I personally would give a guarantee that I will follow this up as well with senior officers of the council to ensure, not merely for Councillor Taylor, but for any of us, that if we are faced with a position like this, that the most robust response and most effective response is given. But I'm sure that those in this chamber who haven't heard this before about the death threats, I'm sure they will be as shocked as anyone listening on the YouTube at the moment. It's an absolutely unacceptable position, and you have my full support, Councillor Taylor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cheney.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for the leader, which is about planning, but I'd rather get a kind of a leadership perspective, which is why I'm asking Chris the question. So recently, a planning application was approved in Wisbech for a 24-hour gambling casino. That will make it the 3rd gambling casino in a very close area around the town centre. And I'm very concerned about it. I'm concerned for 2 reasons. The first reason is the way that it looks to the public, because where a lot of applications seem to take weeks or even months to go through, we saw one today at Cabinet that had been waiting around for 10 weeks. This one seemed to zoom through at top speed. And I'm not suggesting there's anything improper about that, but you can see why the public would look at it and say, why did that application go through so quickly? It doesn't look good. And then you look at what it is. It was, I opposed it as a local member. The heritage officers were not in support of it. It's not in support, our local plan is not in support of it. And it seems to me to be a very, very poor and ill-considered decision for a planning officer to make. Now, I can't understand why the decision wouldn't have been taken to take that to the committee to consider in a democratic way. Well, I know why. I understand that if you go by the absolute letter of the rules, you can get it through and not put it to committee. But I would have thought that anybody sensibly looking at this would have said, this is going to be controversial. We've already got a lot of casinos in the area, and the last thing a small market town needs is to be surrounded by 24-hour casinos, which prey upon the vulnerable. And I'm not suggesting people don't have a right to bet, but they do prey upon the vulnerable. They do bring in people who can't afford that, and people who are already in difficult positions. And the more of them you have, the more that becomes a focus. And it just needed to be properly considered rather than decided behind closed doors by one officer. And I'm shocked and appalled by the decision, which I think was completely wrong. I do not think that it should have been taken. Now, I accept, I could have called it in, and I would have called it in. But it was so fast, it went through so fast. Normally these things take weeks and weeks and you get another thing and you say, okay, well then now it's time to call that in. But it had happened almost the minute we heard about it. It seemed like no time passed at all, and then it was through. Which again, makes the public have a look at it and say, what on earth is going on here? This was not a good thing to do to any of our market towns, but particularly not to Wisbech, already with 2 24-hour casinos, to add a third. It looks awful. And I hope the leader will agree with me that we need to, A, have a close look at how we decide such things in future, and B, we need to talk to our officers and say, what brought you to make this stupid decision? Thank you.
Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And again, I'm rather guilty in answering this rather than the portfolio holder for planning, but I'll do my best. As leader of this council, members will, especially members of the planning committee, will be aware that I keep as much distance as I can from planning decisions as possible. I believe it's important that you have a line drawn between myself as leader and the decisions which are made. I most definitely make representations on anything to do with my ward, if necessary, as I've got every right to do as a ward councillor, but as leader, it blurs lines of responsibility if the leader gets involved. So that's why I don't get involved. But having said all of that, if I had a part to play in this particular decision, I most definitely would have voted against this particular application, which is a change of use. It wasn't a change of use from retail, however. It was a change of use from a non-retail establishment to a gambling establishment. But even so, even though it fell outside our protection of retail establishments, given that there are already two other similar establishments literally within a stone's throw of that location, I would personally have said enough is enough. But planning decisions generally, and members of the planning committee will be well aware of this, as will many other members, planning decisions aren't always black and white. It's not always clear something should be passed or something should be refused. There are often competing arguments. You've got different policies, some of which will support an application and some of which will lead to a potential rejection of an application. And what it's necessary for whoever is determining a planning application, whether that be members of the planning committee or whether that be officers under delegated powers, what they have to do is to balance the arguments in favour, the arguments against, and come down with a conclusion at the end of the day. Now, using judgment is what officers have to do in doing this. And they have to give appropriate weight to the arguments in favour and to the arguments against to come to a conclusion. And in my opinion, in this case, and this becomes relevant because there's a policy matter coming up here, in my opinion, in this case, insufficient weight was given to the representations made by the local civic society, by the local town council, and by the local member. Now, the reason this will become a policy matter is that very soon, sometime in October, we will go into a new regime as far as planning is concerned, where there is a scheme of delegation which is set by central government. And planning applications such as this one, and a vast majority of other planning applications, 90+% of planning applications, will be forbidden by law to be determined by members of this council. We will no longer have the legal right to challenge the overwhelming majority of planning applications which come in and to ask for it to go before the planning committee. We will no longer have the right, not that they won't come automatically, they cannot come at all by law. And that is a very retrograde step indeed. I'm not going to try and defend why the government is doing this, but it is a wrong decision. In fact, it's mentioned later on in the report, in this meeting, agenda item 8. It's part of the agenda item 8 motion. So we are going to face a position where an application such as this, and very many other applications which we would want to scrutinise and sometimes want to take to the planning committee in our own wards, will not be allowed to be determined by members anymore. In September, we will be, as we're required to by law, we've got to follow the law. We'll be required to change our constitution to match what the new legal requirements are. And when we do that, I think that is the right time for us to consider how we try to ensure that sufficient and appropriate weight is given to the views of local civic societies, to the views of town and parish councils, and to the views of local FDC members when this balancing act is carried out by officers in determining what the balance is between the pros and the antis on any particular planning application. It's no use. I'm trying in the motion and agenda item 8 to get Andy Burnham to look at this and see the nonsense that it is. But the likelihood is, as we know, government will just go ahead anyway and do it. It's yet another example of losing democratic control over decision making which exists. And I'm not blaming the officers for that at all. I'm blaming the government because they're the ones responsible. But it's up to us, to the extent that we're allowed by law, to set up a system come September where the voices of local residents, the voices of local councils and the voices of local members, that those voices get appropriate weight when officers make these decisions in the future. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Nuez.
Yes, thank you. This refers back to the Scoldgate Centre. Before I ask the question, I can confirm indeed that when the leader of the County Council was approached about the Scoldgate Centre, the answer was, well, you have plenty of places there. When I asked for her to name one, the name was, you have a library. So can you imagine 20, 30 young lads and girls playing volleyball, football, tennis, whatever, in a library? I mean, I just can't think how somebody can relate to the youth in that way. And then we complain about the youth. We sit in judgment as though we are a quasi-judicial body and individuals belonging to the quasi-judicial body pronouncing judgments and sanctions against the young people, particularly those from the working class areas. I would say shame on those people, and I'm very, very disappointed, being very polite with the leader of the County Council. Would it be possible for the leader of Fenland District Council to take this up with them? My substantive question, Chairman, concerns an organisation called Onside Youth Zones. The government last year allocated £88 million to improve the youth infrastructure, to include sports activities, other cultural activities, including music, with particular reference to the highly deprived areas. And Fenland, as I will delineate later on, is one of the most deprived areas, most deprived districts in the whole of England. So could the leader please ask the relevant council officers to look into on-site youth zones and the government £88 million grant to explore any possible ways to bringing that into Fenland. I can also inform you that a neighbouring local authority has allocated £400,000 towards this fund matching with one side and possibly other philanthropic organisations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Bowden.
Okay, thank you. I just wondered, was the question designated for me or for the portfolio holder?
The question, I mean, there were two questions in that. One question was, given what the leader of the County Council had said in my request for helping Whittlesea procure Scoldgate Centre, either at a peppercorn rent or at a knockdown price. And her answer was, well, you have the library. That was one question. My substantive question was the government's £88 million grant, which was announced on 6th of August last year to help with youth infrastructure, particularly in the most deprived areas, and it is, I believe, administered through on-site youth zones. Thank you very much. Is that clear? To the leader, of course. Who else?
Well, you say who else? We do have a portfolio holder, who is more than capable of giving answers as well. But today is throw all questions to the leader day, so I'm happy to respond. But I know that the portfolio holder would probably give a much better answer than I will give. First of all, on the matter of taking this matter to the leader of Cambridgeshire County Council, I'll be seeing her tomorrow at Full Council in Alconbury, and I'll be seeing her on Wednesday as well, when we've got the next meeting of the Combined Authority Board. So I'll take one or other of the opportunities to convey the feeling that has been expressed by members of this council so far as this particular issue is concerned. I don't know about on-site youth zones. The portfolio holder probably does, but just as important is that we have officers here who also will have heard everything that has been said. It's not merely direct government money which may be potentially available here. We've also got charities or charitable type organisations which potentially have expressed an interest in giving assistance to us. All of this needs to be explored by officers to see the best way in which we can move forwards. But I'm extremely grateful to Councillor Nawaz for raising this issue. And I just wonder, Madam Chairman, if the portfolio holder could be given an opportunity to give a response, because she'll give a much better one than I was able to.
Thank you. Councillor Bullock.
So I think people keep looking at me. I'm not sure what portfolio holder it comes under. So the community of assets, I can't, because it will be predetermined, so I won't discuss that at all and I won't get involved in that. In terms of the youth funding, under what part of my portfolio does that come under? And the answer is obviously yes. I've already looked at it, I've already started to Google it, and it's not as straightforward as it seems. It's not funding that they provide you, it's a four-way funding, so you have to start getting businesses involved and everything else. So of course we can look at that, I'm more than happy to. As much as it was fun to watch the leader answer my question, I'm sure, I don't know if it was mine, but if it wasn't mine, I'm more than happy to look into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I must apologise to Councillor Walbrook. The problem is, of course, this isn't our responsibility at all. It's a county council responsibility, and we're ending up picking up the pieces as a result of a quite outrageous decision which has been made by the county council. So that's why it's a little bit difficult in terms of demarcation of responsibilities, although Councillor Walbrook's community responsibilities are more generally closer to all of this than anything else that anyone has got. But as I say, officers will have heard all of this, and certainly personally I've got a great commitment to ensure that we don't lose what's an absolutely essential facility within Whittlesea, which serves not merely children in Whittlesea, but children from other parts of Fenland as well.
Thank you. Councillor Hoy.
Thank you. My question is for Councillor Laws. It was going to be for the leader, but I thought, given that we're sharing things around now, I'll share it around. So it's again on the gaming centre. Now, I've got two parts really to this. The first is kind of more of a statement rather than a question, in that the obviously I saw it was approved and was asking questions and how that came about. And the head of planning said that he made the final decision under delegation, and the reason was because obviously the policy is 2 or more dwellings, which this wasn't. It's a business rather than dwellings. And he says that it didn't raise wider planning issues that he considered necessary, was the wording used, which is wording from the policy. Now that in itself, I think rings some alarm bells, because obviously that's his view, he's entitled to that, and that's his role. But I do have to question the judgment on considering it necessary, given that we've already heard the local member objected, the town council objected, the Wisbech Society objected. It goes against 3 parts of our own local plan. So we're often, when I've listened to planning committees, hearing the head of planning say how important the local plan is and the interpretation of the local plan. And so when it goes against our own local plan, I would have thought he'd have given that some serious weight. And it also goes against his own conservation officer. So I don't know what that says to a member of staff when your boss doesn't feel that your view is important enough to refer to committee. So I do find that hard to deal with, but that is what it is. I just have to accept that. That is the policy that we work under, and that is the facts. But I suppose what I'm most concerned about is how that decision was reached, because when I asked how that was reached, the answer was that the decision was, because obviously they can say whether it's a clustering of sites, his decision was that there is not a clustering of betting or gaming centres within Wisbech Marketplace. How could that possibly be the case? This is the 3rd 24-hour adult gaming centre, and there are at least 5 betting shops that I can think of immediately. There might be more, but at least 5 I can immediately think of. Now, Wisbech Marketplace is 1,400 square metres, so that is actually not a huge area, you know, in size terms. So for 8 betting establishments, 3 of them 24 hours in that such a small area, how is that not a clustering? How is that not a concentration? And again, I have to just accept that. That's his judgment. He's decided that isn't a clustering. He doesn't have to explain why he doesn't think it's a clustering. It just, in his opinion, isn't a clustering. And so I said, okay, right, look, let's draw a line under this. That's your decision. It is what it is. We can't overturn it. But what do we do in future? What if Joe Bloggs decides to open a 4th adult 24-hour gaming centre? At what point do you decide there is a clustering? And he said, I am unable to answer that. I can't answer what is a clustering. Now, I feel very let down by that answer, because how do we stop 20 or 30 adult gaming centres in Wisbech on that argument? And I also feel that wider FDC colleagues are being let down by this, because our street scene officers are having to literally clean up human excrement from the marketplace on a daily basis. The housing team that are having to house people in bed and breakfast and then find accommodation because people don't have money to pay their rent because they're using these gambling centres. And then the wider public sector, like the police, that are already stretched, and then they're having to deal with incidents like this. So I feel like we're all saying about, and the earlier point about deprivation in Fenland, it doesn't help when our own planning department is making that deprivation worse as a result of their decision making. And so what I would ask, I would have said a change in policy, but that's fruitless given the changes we've just heard about in October. But can I ask the portfolio holder considers, perhaps in discussion with the finance portfolio holder, some sort of assessment as to adult gaming centres within, I'm happy to do it in all market towns, but particularly Wisbech, because we have to have something that officers can use in future, because literally, how are we going to stop there being 20 or 30 adult gaming centres under the explanation we've had from the head of planning? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Laws?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hoy. I thought that was more a statement than a question. But I will answer a few of those things. Yes, we can look at this. I don't disagree. This was on the board of this application. Yes, there had been representation, but then it had met with the planning policy. And I agree that the local plan is 2014 and is seriously out of date. And as Councillor Tierney obviously said, there was another opportunity to call this into the planning department, or into the planning department for a committee decision. It's water under the bridge now, and yes, I can understand why people will be so upset to have yet a 3rd gaming area or establishment that wasn't actually retail premises. I can only say that no one has actually really approached our other towns to actually have that type of gambling facility. I have no idea why Wisbech in particular obviously seems to be the prime area. So I will take that away and I will look at it, and then I will come back to certainly the councillors involved, with speech councillors, also obviously the leader, and obviously bring something back to the full council as well in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Coy, did you want to come back?
Yes, thanks for that. I just wanted to say thank you. I understand that, as you say, water under the bridge, it's happened now. We can't, you know, once the decision notice has been issued, we can't change that. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate you looking forward, because we need to think, how are we going to stop this in future? Because I know you're saying that why haven't they approached other towns? They haven't approached other towns for a reason, because these types of establishments deliberately go to poorer areas. And Wisbech, you just have to look at the statistics, is a poor area, and they prey on these vulnerable people and take every single last penny they have got. And they are part of the reason we've got so many social problems in Wisbech is because of decisions like this, where things keep happening and being done to us, and it just keeps perpetuating the problem over and over and over and over again. So I really would appreciate do appreciate what you've said, that you will look into this and try and see how in future this could be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Seaton. Oh, sorry, Councillor Laws.
Thank you. I would also add that it is obviously people's choice where they actually spend their money and where they go. Obviously, we're not accountable for that as a planning department or as a council. but I will take everything on board and come back to everyone. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Seaton, did you have a question? No.
Tim Taylor.
Tim Taylor, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. So the second question again, I'm afraid, sorry, Mr. Leader, is coming back to you. So I'm looking at putting a conference together either later on this year, stroke early next year, for local food producers. So get a lot of the farmers together and hopefully bring in a lot of people from the hospitality sector, so chefs, restaurants and things like that, to try and get the local food outlets to buy produce straight from the local farm. Once that has been open for potentially an hour, I'm then looking at extending that for the public to come in, to where public can then come in and see what produce they can buy locally, straight fresh from farm. People are crying out for this, thankful to a lot of the motions and social media. People are changing their buying habits on food. So this is a personal project I'm going to do. But would council support it in permitting, like Councillor Laws, to come along as the portfolio holder for planning, Councillor French, my vice chair of the farming committee, like our environment services, to actually explain to people what the rules are over making some sort of food, what's needed, what's not needed. Councillor Laws there for planning. If we put a little farm sale tent up outside the drive, how long can they have it open for before planning's needed? Just to try and keep Fenland on the top of local food production and direct. Thank you.
Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Councillor Taylor on taking this personal initiative of moving forwards with a conference for local food producers. And I appreciate many of the motions he's brought before this council and many of the things that he does outside this council, both online and otherwise, to promote the interests of farmers, both locally and nationally. And this is just an extension of what Councillor Taylor, Madam Chairman, has done previously, supporting local farmers. Absolutely endorse it, and I'm really pleased that Councillor Taylor is doing this. I'm afraid I cannot say anything about Councillor Laws and Councillor French attending, because if I tried to stop them, they wouldn't listen to me. They'd still want to attend anyway. So it will be up to them and their availability at the time. But I'm sure that if they are available, they will attend and will want to give further support to the initiatives that you're pushing forward at the moment. And if your event is on a weekday daytime, then I imagine that if an officer is available who's suitable within Fenland District Council and is able to make a contribution to this, that they will do so as well. That's something to take up with the senior officers well in advance to see if such a thing can be achieved. Because what you're trying to do here, Madam Chairman, what Councillor Taylor is trying to do here is to promote an industry which is massively under challenge at the moment in a whole host of different ways. And we in Fenland, people don't realise that a very small proportion of the population of this country is actually directly involved in agriculture. And even in Finland, in the last statistics we got from the census, the direct figure is only 3%. But that 3% is massively more than the overwhelming majority of other district councils in the country, let alone the metropolitan areas. So it is important. We are part of the breadbasket of the whole of the United Kingdom. And what is being done is not merely good for our farmers, it's also good for the country as a whole. So I wish Councillor Taylor all the success possible in this personal project, and I hope that it's going to be possible for some of the individuals who are here present today and or some officers to be able to attend as appropriate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you. Yeah, I had another thought. I'm going to be very careful how I say this. So I believe that the previously mentioned 24-hour gaming centre will also have to apply for a gambling licence. And this question is going to go to Councillor Hoy. And that is that given the level of interest, could we make sure that we take the opportunity to discuss the matter properly in committee when the licensing application is made. Thank you.
Yes, obviously I'll be very careful as a member of the licensing committee myself, although unable to hear the application due to the location and conscious that there are members of the licensing committee sat in this room. All I will say is that I personally intend to object. Obviously I won't be sitting on the committee anyway, and I am sure the members, as they always do, will listen to it with a completely open mind and consider all the arguments.
Thank you. Councillor Roy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is to the leader, because as it's questions to the leader day today, I believe. So my question is that last year we lost our MRI services at North Cambs Hospital. There's now talk of the endoscopy facilities being withdrawn from North Cambs Hospital in Wisbech. People find it extremely difficult to go to Kings Lynn, and I recall from one of the overview and scrutiny meetings, the Integrated Care Board suggested that there was more communication between GPs to refer people to the North Cambs Hospital. I don't know whether that's happened. I've been approached by many residents as well as the friends of the North Cambs Hospital as to why there's a managed decline of these services at Wisbech Hospital. It's a much needed hospital, not just for the residents of Wisbech, but also the surrounding villages. And I'm looking for some direction that this is an essential health facility. And is there anything more as a council that we can do to apply pressure to stop these services being withdrawn from North Cambs Hospital? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bowden.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and I'd like to give thanks for the notice which has been given of this question by email yesterday. We in a district council have very few direct responsibilities to do with health. We are part of a larger ecosystem of organisations which do try to work together for well-being of people. Just because we as a district council don't have the responsibility, for example, to the extent that there is local responsibility on health, there's a statutory oversight responsibility on the NHS which lies with the county council. But we do have a member on that health committee, and it is possible for us to try to persuade that health committee to take this particular issue up. So one of the things that I will do is to contact the chairman of the county council health committee, pointing out the issues that we have, particularly in North Cambs Hospital, with a view to them putting it as an agenda item on their health scrutiny committee at some time in the near future. I can't guarantee it will happen, but I do undertake to make the request. And we also have to be quite careful. The bureaucracy which is involved in the NHS and the decisions which is made by them is unbelievably complex. And what is really important is that we make the best maximum use of the facilities that we've got at Doddington and at North Cambs to ensure that where treatments can be given, they can be given more locally than having to go to Peterborough or to Kings Lynn or elsewhere. That doesn't necessarily mean the MRI facility or endoscopy. It may mean other treatments, and I'm not in a position to make a comment about that. But the point is, and I'm sorry that Councillor Roy used the phrase, but it was a correct phrase to use, there is the appearance of managed decline, and that is unacceptable. We need health services to be as accessible as they reasonably can be to the individuals who need them. Kings Lynn is not an easy place for some people to get to from Wisbech and from the surrounding villages, I have to say, certainly not by public transport. So having facilities which are available at North Cambs Hospital is absolutely crucial for some people to get easier access to the health services that they need. And there is national policy in favour of, I can hardly believe that I'm hearing the phrase being used again, cottage hospitals being utilised in localities away from the main hospitals, exactly for the sort of service that we're talking about at North Cambs and at Doddington. And given that, the apparent managed decline in North Cambs is more than just puzzling, it's more than just worrying. I have to give credit to Stephen Barclay MP for the amount of work he's put in highlighting both what's happened with the MRI facility, where it was promised it would be returned to us and then wasn't, and what is happening now with various other facilities potentially as well at North Cambs. And I think that we need to give as much support as we can to the MP in what he's trying to do. But as I say, as far as local government is concerned, as things stand at the moment, this is primarily a county council matter. I'll contact the chairman of the health committee, but also our representative, I'm sure, on the health committee will make sure that this matter is brought forward there. I'll make reference again to agenda item 8, where one of the items that I'm asking for us to contact Andy Burnham about is about NHS and local government. Because at the moment, we do have a health bill going through at the moment, which will reduce even further the amount of influence that local government has on the NHS. We need to have better communication. We need to have better coordination between local government and the NHS, not less. The silo mentality which exists, where health looks after health and local government looks after social services, that silo mentality has been recognised for years as being inefficient, ineffective, and outdated. Yet government is moving away from having greater integration. I'll come to this when we've got to come to agenda item 8. But the direction of travel is wrong, giving councils such as ours even less say in what happens so far as the NHS is concerned. So yes, I think I'm really grateful for the question which has been raised. I will ensure that that goes to the correct individual within the county council to try and take it forward with their statutory responsibility of oversight on the NHS. And I hope for the people of Fenland generally, Wisbech and the surrounding villages, that this apparent managed decline is only a short hiatus, and that we'll find that the local health authorities will be making sure that full utilisation is made of the facilities which are potentially available at North Cambs for local residents. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hicks. Councillor Hicks.
I'll give you a rest. You can have a sit there for a minute. This is aimed at the portfolio holder for leisure. Okay. Now, many members may be aware of the situation between myself and Freedom Leisure over the cleanliness and the maintenance of the George Campbell Leisure Centre. Since then, I have received correspondence via emails saying that the Hudson Centre is in a very similar situation. I spoke to Simon Bell, Leisure and Contracts Manager for FDC, and who oversees Freedom Leisure. He last had an inspection in February, I believe, and he only has time to go to 2 visits because of the nature how he's employed. Just having Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's only part-time. Do you think that the council could inspect these centres more, probably 6 times a year, and then follow-up visits made to make sure the work has been done? Also, more in-depth examinations, looking at those other, and I think we should look at the other centres run by Freedom in the Fenland area.
Councillor Woolworth.
Thank you, Chairman. So obviously the answer is always going to be yes. We can always do more. We can always do and ask our officers to go out more. I'm always going to put the responsibility back on the individuals that should be responsible for it. So Freedom Leisure are the ones that are supposed to do the work. And we're supposed to be the overseers rather than the people that go in and hold their hand, but you're completely right. When they came to overview and scrutiny, they were very clear on their plan of action that they were going to take, and I quite liked their plan of action. So they wasn't hiding away from the fact that the cleanliness can be better. They wasn't hiding away from the fact that when it was raised, when issues are raised, obviously the communication's been breaking down between the service user and them actually doing it. So those things that we're going to look into. As much as we can ask people to go look around it, you're never going to get the same level of knowledge that you are from service users. So when I know you go in there quite often for the thing, I go into Hudson Leisure Centre 3 times a week. I know that walking through the changing rooms is not the same as me using the changing rooms. So I think that one of their things that they said at overview and scrutiny is that they were going to look more back at feedback from actual people that come in there. And I think that's probably key, because you're going to need people like us, you and other people that use it regularly, to actually tell them what's going wrong. And then we then collate that and make sure they're doing that, rather than us going through there and telling them what they're doing wrong. Does that make sense? So we want them to be taken with full responsibility for making sure that they provide the service that they should do, and we go in in and find out when people are raising concerns what's going wrong. But it's only been a week, so give it a little bit more time and we'll go through. But yes, I will check on to see how many times our officers going in, because a couple of times a year doesn't sound too great at all. But yeah, thank you. I hope that answers some of it. I went around the houses a little bit, but I was getting there.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick.
Yeah, my question is for the leader. It's quite simple. The Horsefair roundabout in Wisbech is a major gateway to Kings Lynn, Spalding and Peterborough, as well as those visiting the North Cambs Hospital. The current state of the roads leading up to and including pavements and safety rails are in an embarrassing state. I know that County Council highways have a responsibility for these. However, is there anything we can do as a council to apply pressure to bring these up to a good state of repair to the capital of the Fens? Surely this is an eyesore for visitors and those living locally and does not reflect well on Fenland.
Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm advised by Councillor French that maybe Highways England rather than County. I would bow to her greater knowledge maybe on that, but it's a more general point which I will answer to her on that, and that is right across Fenland we have a whole host of highways issues which are quite lamentable, to be honest. The highways are in a bad state, the areas around the highways are in a bad state, and action is not being taken, or where it is being taken, it's being taken very, very slowly by highways. And I'm going to give an answer which is not meant to be flippant, but is correct. You need to elect different councillors. You need to elect a different council. You need to have a different administration involved in highways, where you have councillors who actually take responsibility and direct officers to ensure that things are done properly. And ultimately, the problem lies with politicians. And the politicians who are elected, or who gain power through elections and have administration responsibilities for these matters, should actually carry out their responsibilities.
Thank you. Councillor Nawaz, do you have another question?
I'm sorry, it was more to do with the services at the North West Cambs Hospital in Wisbech, as well as Doddington. Just as a point of information, I actually raised that question last month through the County Council Health Scrutiny Committee to the North West Anglia Community Care Trust, which has now devolved into one massive, big organisation. And I think the leader and everybody else would you agree with me that in the name of devolution, the new proposed neighbourhood health centres are going to be serving 50 to 100,000 people, and that's some devolution. Given that the population of Fenland is, according to the 2021 census, it was 104,800 or thereabouts. Now it's probably, if one looks at the housing developments, probably in excess of 110,000. The diagnostic services, according to the government, such as endoscopy or MRI scan, should be serving no more than 100,000 people. So I think that puts into perspective the contradiction between what the government is proposing on the one hand and what they are actually doing on the other hand. I reminded the NW Health Commission, the Northwest Anglia Community Healthcare Trust at the last meeting about the question which I had submitted the previous month. However, I haven't had an answer yet, but if I do, I will inform this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other questions? Right. Move on to agenda item 7. 8. This is a motion submitted by Councillor Bowden concerning proposed changes to local government and its functions. Item 8 is a motion on notice from Councillor Bowden, which appears at pages 41 to 42 of the agenda pack. Councillor Bowden has asked on this occasion, no, not that one, okay. Councillor Bowden, would you like to move your motion?
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman. I am not in favour of bringing party political motions to council. It's not really productive, and I see it happen in many councils all around the country. But some of the decisions which are made nationally have an impact on local services. And given that there are 3 at the moment which are particularly egregious, and given the opportunity for change that there allegedly is at the moment, I thought it was appropriate to bring this motion. Because we are all told that we are about to have a significant change in leadership in the country, and that we're about to have a new Prime Minister, a person who is all things to all men and all women, it appears, and who is going to solve many of the problems which we have in this country. And we all look forward to that being successful. But when that actually conflicts against the need to make hard decisions, I fear that some people may be disappointed. Nevertheless, we hear that everything is up for review, things are being looked at afresh, and a new start will take place for this government, which is only 2 years into office, but already is clearly floundering. So when this new opportunity arises, I thought it would be helpful for this council to ask Prime Minister Burnham, as he's going to be, it appears, to ask Andy Burnham to give consideration to 3 policies the government is following at the moment, which are in many respects counterproductive and which will not be helpful in achieving the change that he says that he wants. And the first is local government reorganisation. And this process that we're going through at the moment, I'd almost call it a farce, this process we're going through at the moment, which is going to result in less local government, more remote local government, and less efficient local government, makes no sense to anyone at all who actually wants to see local services improve. Because as far as the finances are concerned, the overwhelming majority, 80% plus of local government expenditure goes just on adult social services, children's social services, and SEND services, all of which are county council upper tier authority responsibilities. And the way in which a lot of efficiencies are achieved there is through economies of scale. County council is able to achieve economies of scale because it's serving a population of 600,000. But what these proposals will mean is that currently some 31 or so upper tier authorities with responsibility for this, 26 county councils and maybe about 5 small unitary authorities like Peterborough, those 31 councils are going to be replaced with 55 or so new unitary authorities, reducing the opportunities for economy of scale by a half. It makes no economic sense, quite apart from making no democratic sense. Planning reform. We've heard today about what's going to be happening with the proposed scheme of delegation, where hardly any planning applications will be allowed to be determined by members in future. That's just not right. It removes the democratic accountability that is required as part of a planning process. It really is important that that is reversed. And it's being put forward on the grounds that councillors stop applications going through for new housing. Well, I don't think that's quite the case in Finland, as far as I've understood the planning committee is concerned. And I believe that government is looking to local government as a scapegoat for its own failings to manage to get the 1.5 million houses built that they said they would in this parliament. The problem doesn't lie with local authorities. The problem overwhelmingly lies with developers and the way in which they do business. And finally, on the NHS and local government, the current health bill which is going through, which removes any amount of coordination which currently exists between local government and the NHS, will no longer have any joint health and social care strategic needs assessments, will no longer have an integrated care partnership, and will no longer have integrated care strategies. And whilst all of those may sound bureaucratic, they are the means by which the difficulties which there are in the health service and the difficulties which there are in social services are ameliorated. They're not solved, but at least they're made easier by joining together and having strategies to ensure that a more seamless service is given to patients and to residents. So these are not good directions of travel that the government up till now has been following. And I would like to give this council the opportunity to say to Andy Burnham, think again on these, and there might actually be some improvement that is seen over and above what we've seen under the current Prime Minister. Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Mrs. French. Councillor Mrs. French, would you like to speak now or at the end? Thank you. The item is now open for discussion, and members are reminded that they may only speak once. Councillor Laws.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to add one fact also regarding the planning and local councils being blamed for the fact that we're not delivering the 1.5 million. It also sits with the fact that building materials go up daily and we don't have trades. And this isn't just Fenman, this is other areas. So qualified bricklayers, all the people that actually bring forward these developments. So in answer to Councillor Bowden's motion, I totally support it. But I would also like to say we as local councillors are absolutely in no position to actually go with the 1.5 million that the government wants to deliver, and no council would be. Thank you.
Councillor Noaz.
Thank you very much. I don't know what school members of this government attended or not attended. And I don't like bringing in political issues to this council either. However, sometimes it is a compulsion to do so. The government appears to have a severe linguistic or conceptual difficulty with the word devolution. Or maybe because they keep bringing in a bad policy after a bad policy purely on ideological grounds, maybe they have contracted a doctrinaire dysentery from which I think one Prime Minister has already succumbed or will succumb. Devolution to most people is the delegation or transfer of power, of funding, of decision-making, and of governance from the central or national government to the local communities. Such a, and that the communities are best placed to make the decisions, tailor-made decisions to their needs in health, education, or social services, because they know what they need. So what is the government doing in these sectors? In health, they have devolved already on 1st of April, I believe, the Cambridgeshire Integrated Care Board from looking after 900,000 population to what is now called the Central East Care Board, with a population of 3.5 million, and includes the geographical areas of Hertfordshire, Bedfordshire, Milton Keynes, Luton, as well as Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And that seems to be their definition of devolution. In governance, the decision-making power they're taking away from Finland, which, as I said earlier, has a population of 104,000 or thereabouts, to a projected population of probably 500,000 to 1 million, and I know that there is some flexibility in that. Now, that doesn't appear to be devolving powers of decision making. They will be reducing the number of councillors from the existing 43 in Finland to 30, maybe if we're lucky, even 20. We don't know yet. The number of wards would almost inevitably be reduced from 18 to maybe 10, maybe 8. We don't know. That makes representation quite remote compared to what it is now, and the communication and relationship between the residents and the elected representatives more remote and more difficult. This, Chairman, I believe, is a missed golden opportunity. An opportunity to address the issues of Finland, an opportunity to level up Finland. Finland is currently 80th most deprived of the 317 local authority districts in England. That means in the bottom 25%. There are what are called LSOAs.
Councillor Wise, we've got 1 more minute.
Sorry? 1 minute. Okay. I'll speed it up then. So in March and in Wisbech, which are at the bottom 10% in the United Kingdom. Now, I will give you a few examples. There is a whole host of statistics which would support this point of view. In education, the attainment 8 score in Finland is 36.7. In South Cambridgeshire, it's 51.5. You work out the difference. Further education changes between the year 22 to 23 to 23 to 24. South Cambridgeshire, it grew by 3.2%. In Finland, it actually fell by 1.5%. NEET, the not in employment in education and training, 60 to 64-year-olds, in Finland is 24.7%. In South Cambridgeshire, it is 8.4%. The hourly rate in Finland is £13.13. In South Cambridgeshire, it's 16.34. Work limiting illness rates in Finland are 34.1%. In South Cambridgeshire, they're 19.7%. Life expectancy in Finland is 78.2 years. In South Cambridgeshire is 82.5 years.
I have to ask you to finish, please.
Sorry. I will bring it to a conclusion.
Thank you.
Now, this is the opportunity that has been missed. And I would argue that Finland, as it exists, should be given more powers to address their particular issues than be drowned into a much bigger authority. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Of course, I'm going to support this motion. We've had a big project going on for the last year, which I've kept well and truly quiet from the leader. We've been searching with medical teams, and we've actually been working with 2 people very, very high up in child health. And 2 children in particular was more or less thrown out of school through ADHD, their attention was dead set zeroed, and their parents was made to feed those 2 children just on fresh produce. No processed food, fresh meat, fresh vegetables, fresh apples. The kids' attention deficit straight back, been absolutely brilliant at school. The health was up, and the parents said that they was actually a joy to be around now. One of the members of staff at the hospital that was working with us got fired, and I actually received an email, and I won't say where from in here, telling me to back off. It's worth too much money. So, of course, I want to support this. Anything that we can do to actually highlight health and saving the NHS and the education system, I'm supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Oh, Councillor Somers, thank you.
It won't surprise Councillor Bowden that I don't think this is the right thing to do, because I've said something similar before when we've talked about LGR. The motion brings quite a few different things into it, which some members may have opposing views on. They might support part of it, but not others. I think it would have been better to focus on maybe one element of that. I think that Mr. Burnham, let's assume he does become Prime Minister. I don't think this is going to be high on his agenda, if I'm honest. And I think that we should spend our time focusing on what we can do to make the best of the situation. I think that the letter or the motion itself has what I perceive as quite a lot of opinion, but maybe not a lot of facts and statistics to back that up. And overall, I think the tone of it just feels a little bit almost desperate to try and stop the freight train, if you like. And so for that reason, I don't support it, but there are many elements of it I do agree with.
Thank you. Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chair. Having heard what Councillor Summers just said, that really sums up my opinion as well. I fully support LGR. I don't think it can come quicker, to be quite honest. It's a bit like turkeys voting for Christmas here, isn't it? People opposing it. But having looked at what the planning process changes are, and I think there's a bit of a typographical in Councillor Bowden's motion where he talks about will only determine minor things. I think the idea is it's actually the committees are only going to determine the biggest applications, because everything's just going to be dealt with under delegated powers. As with regards to the NHS changes, I've got to say what we've got in place isn't working. I think it appears to me from having sat on overview and scrutiny that they're just sort of talking shops. Not a lot actually comes out of it. No actual action. So change does need to occur, but it's probably in the wrong direction. But the trouble is, I don't have enough detailed knowledge of what other changes they're proposing under this new act, because it's a national policy. So for that reason, I can't support this, because there's elements I support and elements I don't support. If it had been split out, it would have been better, and I think we could have sort of indicated which areas we do support. But there you go.
Thank you. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you. He wasn't going to say anything, but driven to it by some comments I've heard. Councillor Summers suggests there's a freight train coming and we're desperately trying to stop it. I'd rather try and stop it than just ignore it. You know, if a freight train's coming for your constituents, you should try to stop it. If you don't give us stuff, you should just say that, because people are listening and will remember. In regards to Councillor Booth, I certainly can tell you that your Liberal Democrat colleagues elsewhere do not agree with you, but it's nice that you're honest with your opinion. What we are about to face is the most destructive thing that's happened to local government in 50 years. It is going to lead to a much worse, much more expensive, much slower, much less responsive council in every place it's done. And that's because bigger councils are more remote and less responsive. That's just fact. And I'm sorry to hear Councillor Booth say it, to be honest, because it used to be that the Lib Dems were in favour of devolution and smaller councils and more power to local people. And here's Councillor Booth suggesting the opposite. Sad day. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Count.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm going to stick with the freight train analysis for a moment and just say that I kind of agree with that. You know, this is trying to stop the freight train, and I don't think our letter will achieve that. But it's important that the members of the public see what we're fighting for, and this is one way of doing it, is actually highlighting to their attention that Councillor Bowden has taken the time and effort to put together a motion that we will actually do something to highlight to the public what is coming forward. And that's why I'm going to support it, not because I think it will actually change the world, but because I think it's important that our residents see what we're fighting for. What we're fighting for is a couple of different things going on here. Now, I'm going to start off by saying that I support local government reform. Boo, hiss, I hear you all say. Well, I do, if it was well thought and managed appropriately. If somebody said, like an engineer, you have a problem, you analyse what the problem is, then you design something to fix it, and then you end up doing it, and then you come back and check if you've got there. That hasn't happened with this local government reform. This is politically driven at a speed without looking at the issues that are out there that could be improved and how to improve them. This is going to have a very negative effect on our communities by doing it in this way. One of the things that we do get with local government reform, we're promised, is through devolution, you get more local powers. Well, we have some experience of devolution in this area. We have a mayor at present, we have a very good and able mayor, doing a fantastic job as far as I'm concerned. And when it was set up, we had 2 previous mayors. They were all promised more devolution, more powers. I'll tell you the powers they got. They got the highways powers from the county council, not from central government. Central government devolved nothing to them. But what they also got was the right to tax in new and innovative ways. If we look at London, if we look at Birmingham, clean air zones, congestion charges, the money's flooding in for them to spend on buses and transport, things like that they believe was right. The local residents are paying for that. The government didn't give up powers in those areas. What they gave up was the right to tax more. And my biggest fear about this local government reform isn't just the absolutely catastrophic effect of getting rid of a well-run council such as Fenland. It's the fact that when it arrives, there will be new duties imposed, very few powers, if any, devolved, but the right to tax the local resident even more. So I'm opposed to it because they never came up with a plan to how to deal with the problems. What they've just seen is that easy opportunity of more money centrally spent, either locally or centrally, just in their pocket rather than the taxpayers. So I'm in favour of this letter, but I don't think it will stop the freight train.
Councillor Clark, thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Chairman. I'm similar to other people. There are some parts of this I could support, and there are some places that I can't. I know all the councils in Cambridgeshire voted for a mayor, and that was under Councillor Count's leadership, and he did very well to get it through. And the inference was that governance would eventually change. So we can't point the finger at just one particular party. We were responsible with the Conservatives. But one thing I am surprised about is that no one has made a declaration of interest. We have county council members who are on £13,000 a year allowances. We have a leader that's the county council, Fenland District Council, combined authority member in the region of 46,569. And we seem as if we're all talking about preserving our jobs rather than looking at the big picture and what is best for Fenland. And I believe that reorganisation could possibly be better for Fenland. So as much as I would like to support some of these items, I can't support the document in total. And as I say, I would like to make a declaration of interest. I do get an allowance from this council, but that's making no difference to my decision making.
Thank you. Councillor Hoy.
Yeah, thank you. That sort of drove me to speak, and I'll try and keep it brief because I'm sure we've all had a long day. But first of all, one thing I wish I could have responded earlier when we were talking about £1 million and losses everywhere. What happened to that £1 million for the A14 that when you were leader, we had to give away? That's kind of nowhere to be seen, and we spent it on a project that was absolutely nothing to do with us. So people make decisions that I suppose at the time may seem good, but were they good? We never know. In terms of the mayoralty, quite a few people did say that they were unconvinced that it was going to be a wonderful thing and it would just be another thing that costed a load of money. And there we go, exactly proven right. And the point about LGR, I think the point people are making is that I think it won't end up saving. I personally don't care either way about it because I think that there are some pluses and minuses. I think one plus will be, well, two pluses I can think of is we'll have our own highways officers that we can speak to rather than having to rely on ones in Cambridgeshire County Council that just care about Cambridge. That's an advantage. Our wards are likely to be smaller. If we've got about an electorate of about 3,000, actually that's an awful lot of people than I've got to represent as a county councillor. So actually, whilst for district councillors it might seem as an increase, if you're a county councillor it might seem a decrease, because although we have separate areas of responsibility, often we're dealing with, I'm sure some of you district councillors are dealing with highways issues even if you're not a county councillor, and if you're a county councillor you end up dealing with district council issues, so actually there'll be a lot less confusion there. So I can see some positives, I can also see some negatives, and I think it will absolutely not achieve any of the savings that they claim it's going to achieve. And I think in 5 or 6 years' time, we'll all be sat here saying we haven't achieved any savings at all, and we're all paying just as much tax as we were. But I just thought it was a really rotten comment, actually, to say that people are doing it for the money and et cetera, because we only hear that from the opposition, which kind of feels like if you think like that about people, it has to come from somewhere, like you're actually maybe got a guilty conscience, because as you make a good point, you receive allowances too. You receive a group leader's allowance. And I remember it's not so long ago when we had a group of 2 with a leader getting a leader's allowance that they'd for themselves and their husband. So, people do get allowances. It's publicly declarable information. And I just think that it's just, it's a bit mean, really. And if you feel that strongly about it, you can also, as members can, and I think Councillor Scolding used to, when he was an FDC, you can forfeit your allowance, and given that you don't need it and that we're all being so mean, perhaps you'd like to do that.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? No. Councillor Mrs. French, would you like to exercise your right to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I do fully support this. I'm not going to go on because I think everybody said quite a lot, but I do think it was inappropriate to mention allowances, and especially, the leader. I was enjoying the conversation from Councillor Happ, but I'm sorry, I lost you halfway. I haven't got a clue what you ended up talking about.
Thank you. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up?
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman, and a very interesting debate it has been indeed. I will not be taking up Councillor Booth's and Councillor Summers' invitation to split out issues like this and bring them individually, because that would mean that every single council meeting I'd be bringing up a political issue, and I don't want to do that. What I'm doing here is hanging my hat on the change in national leadership that it looks as though we're going to have in the next few weeks. And it is a momentous change. We're promised all sorts of things are going to happen. We're promised there's going to be change. And it is entirely appropriate that the people of Fenland have as much of a voice in that change as the people in Makerfield. And that's what this is meant to help to promote. There are real issues involved in local government reorganisation. Not that it's not necessary. It's been necessary for decades to have local government reorganisation. But the ham-fisted way in which this is being carried out by this government is actually going to be harmful rather than helpful. Every single local government reorganisation there's been since the 1834 Local Government Act had been preceded by a royal commission. It took time, but they considered all of the options and they ruled out a lot of ideas which had been put forward and turned out not to work in practice. In this case, a government minister stands up in December 2024 and says, we're going to change, and this is how we're going to change. He then ignores his own rules as it happens, but the whole process was set up in such a way that all the anomalies which exist, which we've got ourselves, let's take, for example, Wisbech, and the fact that a significant proportion of what's effectively Wisbech isn't even in Cambridgeshire, let alone in Wisbech, those anomalies couldn't even be addressed because of the way in which this was done. So I think that Councillor Clark didn't actually listen to what Councillor Count was saying, which is, it's not that we're against local government reorganisation, we want effective local government reorganisation, and that's not what is happening in front of us now. And what I predict is, especially given the financial disaster that this is going to be, it's not going to be many years before we'll have a further lot of local government reorganisation to correct what's happening now in this process. So that's what this letter is about. It's highlighting things which are going in the wrong direction at the moment and saying, we're being promised change, we're being promised a reset by government. If you are going to change, rethink some of these proposals which actually go against the ideas that you are proposing yourself. So I look forward to the opportunity for as many as possible of the members of this council to vote in favour of this letter. We will send it, and Councillor Count is entirely correct. The letter won't stop the freight train. But we owe it to the people of Finland to give voice to many of the concerns that they've got about the direction of travel that we've got and the fact that they're going to have worse local government, less accountable NHS, and a planning regime which is less accountable to them as well. We owe it to them to express those concerns, and that's what this letter does. Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. We will now move to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. May I now call upon Member Services to announce the outcome?
With a vote of 28 in favour, 5 against and 2 abstentions, the motion is carried.
Thank you. The vote is carried. The next item on the agenda is the Treasury Management Annual Report, which appears on pages 43 to 54 of the agenda pack. I now call upon Councillor Bowden to present this report.
I will keep this brief, Madam Chairman, because I can already see my audience is walking out when I'm starting to speak on the subject, and I can take a hint. Thank you very much indeed. Treasury management function continues to be operated professionally by officers, and we've achieved good results given the situation that we're in. And we're in a far better financial position, I have to say, than the vast majority of district councils and other councils around the country. We continue to operate within our approved strategy. We continue to have no liquidity difficulties, and we continue on a day-to-day basis to analyse our financial position to work out how we can manage to maximise the money that we do have and to minimise the amount of money that we may need to borrow on a short-term basis. The Treasury management function is dependent, as much as anything else, on the actions of the Council itself and how what is proposed for the Council turns out at the end or during the course of the financial year. And in this particular financial year, instead of the £21 million which we had budgeted for capital works, we actually ended up completing only 9 million, which is not enormously surprising, that 12 million gap, given the amount of projects under Finland Inspire, which are part completed and which will be completed during the course of this financial year, which is when they will actually be booked. But the Treasury Management Report it generally shows we came close to our benchmark so far as interest earned was concerned, and I'm more than happy to put this before Council and to ask for it to be supported. Thank you very much indeed. Happy to answer any questions anyone's got.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mrs. French, thank you. Would you exercise your right to speak now or at the conclusion? Thank you. The item is now open for debate. Maybe speakers? Councillor Mrs. French, would you like to exercise your right to speak? Thank you. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up, please?
Formally.
Thank you, members. The recommendation is at page 43 of the agenda pack and is for full council to note the report. Is that duly noted? Thank you. Agenda item 10, amendment of reserves report, pages 55 to 58. This is a report proposing an amendment to the reserves and appears at pages 55 to 58 of the agenda pack. I now call upon Councillor Bowden to present the report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm just looking around to see how many people walk out when I start talking about reserves. The Council regularly reviews its reserves. Normally, it's in the run-up to budget time. But circumstances are changing. Local government reorganisation means that this Council will no longer exist in 21 months' time. We've got quite a few ambitions in terms of what we want to achieve in that 21 months, and also there are some opportunities which exist, and there are some dangers which will be minimised in that period. And this amendment of reserves is a start, and we'll have further proposals brought forward in September. It's a start in revising our reserve position to match what we increasingly believe to be our final requirements so far as reserves are concerned. Let's just take, for example, the general reserve. We've had a general reserve in this council for many decades, I think, of £2 million. As you get closer to the 31st of March 2028, you require less and less of a general reserve because it's rainy day money for things which are unexpected. And the opportunity for significant amounts of money to be required and significant events to take place reduces as time goes on. But then we've got other things which are happening where we know we're going to have to spend more money. One example being local government reorganisation and some of the costs which are involved in that. Others are, for example, the amount of money we're going to have to spend on our local plan. And more importantly than many of those in terms of the finance, what we're going to have to do in terms of the Inspire programme, not merely on the capital side, where we'll be relying largely on borrowing, but on the revenue side, where we need to make sure that we've got the council staff to be able to deliver the Inspire plans that we've got. So there are things which are changing, many of which are related to local government reorganisation. When you've got things like the business rates reserve, for example, as the opportunity for appeals against the business rate valuations by the Valuation Office reduce, so the need for a reserve reduces. And that's what these changes start to do. There will be further changes coming through in September. There will be further changes coming through by the time of the budget next year, which will be our final budget. And I'm happy to propose this, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tierney, thank you. Would you like to exercise your right to speak now or later? Later, thank you. The item is now open for debate. Councillor Tierney, would you like to exercise your right? No. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up, please?
No, thank you.
Thank you, members. The detailed recommendations are at page 55 of the report. Are they agreed? Yes. Thank you. Agenda item 11, LGR update and governance arrangements. Agenda item 11 is a report which provides a local government reorganisation progress update and can be found at pages 59 to 70 of the agenda pack. Councillor Bowden has requested on this occasion that questions be answered as they are asked. If that's okay with councillors. I now call upon Councillor Bowden to present the report.
Well, again, starting a motion and people disappear rapidly as soon as I start speaking. I'm not going to go through every page, all 12 pages of this page by page. You can go back to your seat if you so wish. Obviously not. We all know that we've been on a big journey on local government reorganisation. We've got a lot further to go. It's going to be even more difficult in the next 21 months than it has been in the last 19 months. And the report is here saying what we've gone through up till now. I can advise members that we have been assured that this week we will receive notification from MHCLG of the decision by the Minister as to what the boundaries will be of the unitary authority that we will all be living in with effect from the 1st of April 2028. Other things will follow from that, and a lot of hard work is going to be required in order to knit together the work of the district councils involved and part of the county council work involved in order to get a new unitary authority up and running with seamless services with effect from the 1st of April 2028. So the report is in front of you, and I thought, Madam Chairman, that given that the report is quite comprehensive, thank you very much indeed, officers, it just gives an opportunity for any members who have any questions about what has happened up till now and what looks as though it may be likely to happen in the future, to give members an opportunity to ask those questions, and I'll be happy to answer them as best I can. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Laws, thank you. Would you like to speak now or reserve your right? Thank you. The item is now open for debate. Councillor Miscandlin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I heard a rumour the other day over the LGR that Whittlesea is in fact excluded from Fenland as part of the LGR programme. Is this correct or is this incorrect? Because if it's true, I wouldn't want to come into Whittlesea and try and promote anything.
Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm sure it's correct that there is a rumour, but the likelihood of that rumour being correct is low, but nothing is impossible. We're dealing with a government minister here who's making, if you go on the basis of what he did a few months ago when determining what the boundaries would be for new unitary authorities in Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex and Hampshire, anything is possible. I very much hope that that rumour is wrong. I just can't answer the question any more than that. If it's right, I'm sorry to say I've already heard of some individuals who will want to leave Whittlesea and move out of the clutches of Greater Peterborough.
Councillor Count.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Very quick, short question. I'm concerned when this does move forward, despite the letter, which we hope and pray will stop it. I'm concerned when this does move forward, that if we get separated from Cambridge City, which I quite look forward to myself, that the divvying up of the spoils will be rather one-sided. So there's a huge asset base in the south of the county and very little in the north. The valuations of the assets in the south of the county are quite open to different opinions. So if it hasn't got planning opinion, there's one site might be 10, 20 million. With planning permission, it'll have 400 million pounds value. I'm also concerned about the debit sheet. So the debit sheet has maybe 450 million pounds worth of highways repairs across the county. 320 million of that, a few years ago, is in the fen soil roads, which comes from East Cambridgeshire through Fenland into the east of Huntingdonshire. And only the remainder is spread over everywhere, including those three areas. So you can see that if everything just goes location-based, the damage to Fenland we will lose on assets that we own. I am a Cambridgeshire taxpayer. I have every right to £1 of my tax purchasing those things as the people who live 100 yards down the road. And I also demand the right that somebody living in Cambridge City has to pay £1 of their tax to help with all of Cambridgeshire roads, not just the ones they prefer. So the question to you, Leader, is what's going to happen and how can this be guarded against? The first time I asked a question about the asset space, I was told they would be geographically go with whoever succeeds. And that would be absolutely unfair, and I would regard myself as having been robbed. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Bowden.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman. And Councillor Count is not incorrect. In theory, assets and liabilities are geographically based and they will be split geographically, in theory. In practice, it's not as simple as that. There are a whole host of reasons why it's not as simple as that. But I'm sorry to say Councillor Count is not wrong that a significant proportion, disproportionate amount of the assets of the Cambridgeshire County Council will end up going to the unitary authority, which includes and may only include Cambridge City and South Cambridgeshire, and that is a matter of geography. There will be a structural change order, which will be published by government as a draft statutory instrument in December, which will lay out a lot of this in terms of the principles which are involved. But it will also lay out a mediation process and ultimately a legal process to determine the disagreements that there will be about which assets are split and how they're split, and which liabilities are split and how they're split. And if we look at what happened in Northamptonshire, when the two unitary authorities were created a few years ago in Northamptonshire, we will see that this is going to be a very difficult process indeed. And we will have joint committees established in each, well, both or each, I don't know how many there are going to be, of the new unitary authorities in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And they will start the process, and it will be continued by the shadow authorities after they are elected in May next year, in determining how this split of assets and liabilities takes place. And I'm expecting that there is going to be a very large amount of disagreement, and there will be a lot of voices, like Councillor Counts, saying that what is being proposed, in whichever direction, is wrong and unfair. Ultimately, it will be for those individuals who are elected to the new shadow authority to stand up for the area that they are responsible for. But the basic principle, which Councillor Cant said, that assets and liabilities are meant to be geographically based, that will stand, but it will be subject to a large amount of amendment. For example, where do cash balances belong? They are much more likely to be transferred out dependent upon the population of the relevant unitary authorities concerned. And the same will go for some debts, but those debts which are specific to assets should go where the assets go. So there's a lot of argument to take place as far as that's concerned. But Councillor Count is absolutely wise to warn all of us that we are going to have to be on our guard here to ensure that we are not done badly by so far as this process is concerned.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Mrs. Laws, would you like to
I'd love to come back. Thank you. Only to say that obviously I'm supportive of this, but I don't want to lose the opportunity. Councillor Count has brought up the assets. That is my concern. And I hope there will be a voice to challenge possibly what will be considered geographical areas. I'd like to also not lose the opportunity to say, as a Whittlesea town councillor and district councillor, as you've intimated, several of our residents are already looking to move if we move into Peterborough, because they do not want to inherit the debt and all the problems they have, and they have great problems there. And we don't want to lose our Fenland identity. When I last looked, Chatteris, Wisbech, March and Whittlesea were part of Fenland. But if we are hived off, I think it's going to be problematical for the people in Whittlesea. But I do support this completely. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up, please?
Yes, thank you. I'm grateful for the questions which have been asked. I imagine many of you will have other questions which will occur to you at some stage in the very near future as things develop, especially as we get the announcement later this week. I'm more than happy if any of you want to phone me or to email me with questions. I'm more than happy either to give you answers or to tell you I don't know the answer, but at least to give you the benefit of what information I do have. So that's an open invitation to all members. Thank you very much indeed, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, the recommendation is at page 60 of the report and is for full council to note the progress towards local government reorganisation in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. Is the report duly noted? Thank you. Agenda item 12. Agenda item 12 is the overview and scrutiny panel's annual report, which can be found at pages 71 to 80 of the agenda pack. I now call upon Councillor Woolard as chairman of the overview and scrutiny panel to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. It is a legal requirement for each local authority set up a scrutiny process as a function of the council. Fenland District Council currently has a single overview and scrutiny panel, and the functions for which it is responsible are set out as Procedure Rule 5 of the Constitution. As a matter of good governance, and in the delivery of my role as Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, it is my pleasure to present the annual report for 2025-26. I would first like to take this opportunity to thank all members of the panel during the year for their time and contributions to the work of the Overview and Scrutiny panel. And of course, my thanks to member services for their invaluable support. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee has an important role to play in overseeing the performance and delivery of services. This year, the panel has again had the benefit of receiving a variety of reports from internal and external colleagues across a broad range of service areas pertaining to the Council's core priorities. More details about that can be found in the report. In the coming year, the panel has and will continue to receive regular performance updates to ensure that services perform well. The future work programme will be published with the agenda for each meeting, and will focus on issues that are paramount importance to local residents and businesses. Business will include will include updates on the council performance against corporate priorities, as well as scrutiny of external organisations such as Clarion and Anglian Water. I am confident that the panel will utilise its ongoing knowledge and expertise to maintain the high standards expected of it in performing its functions, and I look forward to reporting on these again next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Yes. Councillor Count, thank you. Would you like to exercise your right to speak now or later? Thank you. Okay, the item is now open for debate. No? Councillor Count, would you like to speak now?
Yes, I'd like to commend the ONS committee for the valuable work they do and for the chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Woolard, would you like to sum up, please?
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. Members, the recommendation is at page 71 of the report and is for full council to acknowledge the broad scope of work undertaken by the Overview and Scrutiny Panel during 2025 to 26. Is that duly noted? Thank you. Agenda item 13 is a report relating to a proposed section 113 agreement in relation to housing enforcement services, which can be found at pages 81 to 110 of the agenda pack. I now call upon Councillor Christie to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep this brief. It's quite a comprehensive document that's been proposed in there. So last month, Cabinet approved a revised housing enforcement policy and civil penalty notice policy to reflect the changes brought into place by the Renters' Right Act. For 7 years, as part of our policy for housing enforcement, FDC have undertaken duties on behalf of Cambridgeshire County Council trading standards relating to energy performance certificates and energy efficiency standards. FDC officers working in housing regulation are in properties day in, day out that trading standards do not access. Hence, it is practical and efficient that we undertake that responsibility on their behalf. This approach was originally considered by Full Council in July 2018 as part of the implementation of Member Working Party recommendations looking at housing regulation. The Council now needs to re-enter into a further Section 113 agreement with Cambridgeshire County Council to continue to undertake the relevant statutory duties relating to energy on behalf of trading standards. As a note, all fine income under these duties is retained by Fenland District Council to contribute to the revenue costs of delivering the housing enforcement service. The legal agreement is set out in Schedule 1 and the recommendation to enter into the Section 113 agreement is set out in Section 3 of the report. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bowden, thank you. Would you like to exercise your right to speak now or reserve? Thank you. The item is now open for debate. Councillor Bowden, would you like to exercise your right? Thank you. Councillor Christie, would you like to sum up? No, thank you. Thank you, members. The detailed recommendation is at page 82 of the report. Is that agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 14 is a report relating to constitutional changes which can be found at pages 111 to 114 of the agenda pack. I now call upon Councillor Bowden to present the report.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman. Every now and again, officers ask for the Constitution to be updated to reflect different challenges we're going to face in the near future or different legislative requirements. In this case, we've got a couple of changes which are being proposed. The first is to make it clearer that when we are delegating responsibility to joint committees across other councils, if it's to do with an executive function, it doesn't need to come before council to do that. It can be done by the Cabinet. And that may be particularly important when we're looking at joint committees with relation to local government reorganisation. And then secondly, that when we are receiving grant funding, including when we're receiving grant funding on behalf of Pride in Place, that any funding which is received has to get authority, and that authority depends on how much funding is involved, and the authority is delegated to different levels depending on how much that is. So two fairly small amendments which will just assist in the smooth running of the operation of the council. Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Laws, thank you. Would you like to exercise your right now or later? Later. Thank you. The item is now open for debate. Councillor Laws, would you like to speak now? Thank you. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up?
No, that's fine. Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Members, the detailed recommendation is at page 111 of the report. Is that agreed? Yep. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, today's meeting is now closed, with next ordinary meeting scheduled to take place on Monday the 14th of September 2026 at 4 p.m.